Quincy Davis, once again, how are you doing?
I'm great, man. It's good to be back on your show. Thanks for having me. When was the last time? When was the first one?
So, the first one, it says here that the video was uploaded April 4th, 2020. And which means that I think that interview was on April 3rd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it takes me a little bit of time to, you know, edit the video and all of that. You
Yeah,
know a little bit about that.
that takes a lot of time. Yes. In fact, I don't know if I'm probably not the only one, but I get so neurotic. You were asking me about my camera back there, and I get so neurotic with the quality of the videos and trying different lighting out and different angles, and when I could just copy what I did last time, but I'm always trying to improve it and get better, and so I'm learning new techniques, and oh man, it's tedious, and I haven't even shot any video yet, so.
Well, here, check this out. This is, we'll be able to see some of the, hopefully it'll be viewed as an improvement.
Oh,
So,
wow.
right. So, of course, so that's you on the left to me on the right.
Clearly.
And so, the angle that you used is a little bit different. The lighting is different, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, if you compare, like, my studio, even the lighting and stuff, everything's like overexposed, and
Yours
there's too
is
much, and it looks more like cluttered and stuff, and less like a studio.
Yeah. Yours is much better now. I haven't really gotten my Zoom camera game up. I don't do it a lot, so I don't know. This is probably not any better.
No, it's better because the lighting is better.
Oh,
It's
good.
the because it was darker, and the other
Okay.
thing, but like my angle is a little closer.
Yeah.
It seems like I'm sitting closer to the and I'm using a different mic.
You look like a professional.
Well, that was episode 7, man. This is episode 104.
That's crazy. I can't believe you've done that many in what is that? 7 months? 8 months?
8 months. Yeah. Well, I get into stuff, and I don't know. It's a plus and a minus. My wife may see it as not as such a plus. It's like, oh, now what are you into?
Right.
now what's going to be taking all your time?
Hey, there's a lot worse things you could be into. So, right?
Well, and I've got my
I got a little beef with y'all, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I got my
Getting to the playoffs, sneaking in there like that.
Yeah. Well, we won all the games. It's just, Big Ten didn't quite have it figured out what they should have done.
Right.
Then they latecomers, and so Ohio State only had to play 6 games.
When I look at the records of the 4 teams in the playoffs, everyone's 10, 11 games, and then you see Ohio State 6 games. Like,
yeah, it's funky.
Yeah,
it's really funky, and honestly, it would have been a lot better for us to have some of those clunky games way like a long time ago.
Right.
I see it mostly as an advantage, the teams that have played more games, because they kind of have, the fine tuning is there, all of that.
Right.
And our last couple games were like, oh man.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like old dude might have given up his he was kind of a lock for the Heisman. and then he kind of gave it up. He had a game where was it like 3 interceptions or something, just making bad decisions.
What's his name again?
What is it?
I forgot.
Why can't I think of my man's name? Fields. Is his last name Fields? Man, I better look this up right now. I'm gonna get in trouble. Look, I got my Ohio State shirt on, and I can't even tell you the name of the quarterback.
Yeah, I just watched my team or our team lose, and I think it was the first bowl game of the bowl season. They played Appalachian State, who's a good team. Our team was like 3-8 or something, but we have a top 10 receiver who couldn't. He opted not to play. You know, like some of the top players do. Right. But he's a top 10 receiver in the country. So
Justin Fields. I won't lose too much credibility now.
That's his name.
I won't look just like a poser.
Well,
well, you're still kind of a poser, man.
You did have to look it up. So.
No, I knew his name. I knew his last name before I.
I looked
it up. All right, man. So let's just get right into it. Yeah. You know, I showed a little bit of our original interview. I didn't play any of the interview, but just to kind of compare our studio spaces.
Yeah.
And so if folks want to get into more biographical information and just kind of like what has gotten the great Quincy Davis to this stage in his career, then I highly encourage you to listen to that, to watch that interview. It's a really good interview. I mean, it was a lot of gold.
Well, you know, we were in the middle, and we had just started. You know, the pandemic had really just started hitting hard at that time. So I think there was a lot on both of our minds. You know, and we had a lot to say. So.
Now we're just exhausted because of the pandemic. Now we're the other side of it. Like, oh my goodness, when is this dumb thing going to be over?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. We're kind of used to it. It's become the norm, wearing these dang masks and, you know, not seeing people, friends and family, and it's a crazy existence when you really think about it. The fact that everyone, not just in our state or our country, but everyone in the world is dealing with this thing. It's crazy.
It really is. So I want to start right off with the topic. This is, I think this is an important subject because, you know, music is about playing with people, and, you know, something that was said was about in our initial interview was about culture and, you know, legacy and all of that kind of conversation.
Yeah.
And the maybe the most fundamental relationship and maybe most critical is romantic relationships, right?
Whoops.
And, you know, so the reason I want to talk about this is, you know, I've made lots and lots of mistakes. Fortunately, all you have to do is get it right once. So then it makes it seem like it's, you know, that's right. But I had to kiss a lot of frogs. And I
might have known a couple of those frogs.
Oh yeah. I'm sure you did.
I definitely knew.
Well, so it takes a special. I think it takes a special person to understand why you want to practice 5 hours a day for a gig that pays $50. So that's part of it. You know, that's a big part of it, you know, and someone that understands that.
Thank you so much for watching my video so far. If you'd like to support, there are several ways to do so below. Also, likes are free. Please comment, share, and subscribe. Now back to the video.
And that you're going to have like a lot of passion, a lot of energy involved in something that is not them.
Right.
It's
right.
It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. The mentality of an artist is not for the faint of heart. And it takes a strong person to want to be with an artist, because an artist is a different kind of person. You know, a true artist. You know, some people are. I think to me, the sign of a true artist is someone who wants to just continually create and get better and push their art. You know, push the limits of their art, and as a result, we have to work on that continually, and we have to be obsessed with it. And if we're not, then we're not getting better. And that's the worst feeling for artists, to not be advancing their art.
Yeah.
So.
And, you know, having a lot of additional like angst and turmoil associated with sort of volatile relationships, it only takes away from the intensity that you can apply to your craft.
Yeah.
And, I feel like I can acknowledge that I'm probably not the easiest person to be married to, because of a lot of the stuff that I'm into, and, spending all the time practicing and composing, arranging, doing interviews, teaching. I mean, all the stuff that's involved, editing video, like all of the stuff that, and a lot of that stuff, it's like, wait a minute, how did editing video get in there? Well, it got in there because if you're a modern artist, musician, I think that's one of those skills that you probably, if you don't already have it, it's one that you probably need.
It's amazing how things have changed. When we were in school 20 plus years ago, the last thing we were thinking about was editing videos, and I wasn't even thinking about recording. Honestly, I wasn't really thinking about having a DAWs and mixing and figuring out all that, audio sound waves and whatever, sound files. And I just was trying to swing, honestly. I was just trying to play some swing.
I was just trying to deal with the quarter note.
I was just trying to get, I was trying to just play 4 good quarter notes in a row. And now here we are, man. I think it's a testament to who we are also, because there are some artists who they could care less about all this stuff and the advancement of technique and technology, I should say, which is fine. And it speaks to who they are and what their interests are and the extent to which they want to push their art, or the area where they want to focus their art. And that's beautiful. That's great. But I think we're similar in that we want to kind of, try out different things to see how we can get it all to work together for the large vision of art that we have for ourselves.
Now you admitted something before we started rolling about being an early bird.
Oh yeah.
So how does that play into your productivity?
Well, I mean, I get up early, so that's when I'm most productive in the morning. My productivity as the day goes on wanes pretty drastically. And then in the evening at this time, I'm pretty much done. As far as being able to focus and get something done, sometimes I have good evenings where I have energy, but for the most part, I'm not really thinking about. Um, I don't practice at night. I practice in the morning or during the day.
do, do you have a winding down routine? Do you have like something that you do consistently to help you to sort of, you know, get to sleep, around the same time or whatever?
Uh, no, I don't have a routine. No, but generally, I mean, I like sports, so I like watching sports. That kind of cools me out.
Right.
Gives me a release from, just kind of being deep into whatever I'm deep into at that time, whatever I'm practicing or, whatever I'm working on.
Yeah, and so this would have been a year ago, May. So this is about a year and a half ago now. Um, I had a really bad battle with insomnia.
Oh,
Oh, it was terrible. Probably the worst experience I've ever had in my life. Um, and it stretched on for it was about 3 months. And sometimes people, they say, I've got insomnia. Uh, what they mean is that they're not getting 8 hours of sleep. When I say insomnia, I mean I wasn't getting any sleep,
ugh,
and I wasn't getting any sleep for weeks at a time.
why?
It was really bad. So it started with, man, this is really really strange. It started with, uh, so I did my comprehensive exam for my doctorate,
Uh,
and a couple nights before that I didn't sleep very well. That makes sense.
right.
Probably pretty nervous about that. You have a lot invested. So, I go down, I do my comprehensive and orals. Everything is great. You know, they say, congratulations, you passed. And so then you're thinking, oh man, there's going to be some good sleeping tonight, right? So I'm going to sleep late. It's going to be great. And I was still, it was like I was still uh, in, you get into the fight or flight.
Mm,
I was super vigilant, you know,
your adrenaline was.
and so I couldn't, and I couldn't sleep. And the first night of that, I was like, hey, whatever, maybe whatever, and then it kept extending, and I had a lot of anxiety, and the anxiety was feeding the insomnia, and I was like, I'd get up, and I was just laying in the bed for 3 hours or something. I'd get up, I go downstairs, I'm pacing around in the family room. I go out to the car, say, oh, maybe this is going to be my spot, and I'm listening to the Bible or something, scriptures to sleep to or whatever, and nothing helped. It was horrible. Because then I got to the place where I would be in broad daylight, or I'd be, I would try to go to the gym or whatever, and I would start having these really aggressive panic attacks.
Wow.
And then the panic attacks followed me to when I was supposed to go to sleep that night, and where I would lay down in 10 seconds, I'd have to get up because I'd started having a panic attack about trying to go to sleep. It was some different stuff. It was on a different level.
Wow.
And
That's
I mean, yeah, it was really funky. And so, I went to see a doctor. I got on some medication, non-habit forming medication to help me sleep. And it wasn't like a magic pill. Sorry for the pun. Uh, it was something that helped me to establish a routine, right?
Right.
Up until that point in my life, I never needed a routine to
Never
go to
thought
sleep.
Right. You were
Never
cool.
even thought about it. I would just work until I couldn't stay awake anymore.
Right.
And then I go to sleep. I get up in the morning and I work all day until I couldn't until I couldn't stay awake anymore. That's basically, you know, what I did. And with Moses, having Moses, you know, Moses is 7 now.
Wow.
Yeah, and I you know, I watched our last interview, and you know, I said Moses is 6. You know, of course, that was before his birthday, which was in August.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I was getting, you know, I was doing a lot of work after he would go to bed. I put him to bed, and then I'd go down and do some work, and then I get up in the morning because, you know, I'm taking him to school or whatever was going to happen in the morning.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, you know, I was getting less and less sleep. I think that's what sort of led up.
Did it get better though? I mean, are you?
Well, so what happened was I think that's what led up into me having that pretty pronounced and, you know, kind of funky situation. But then once I went to the doc, I got some medication. I got into a routine that started helping. And the first thing the doc said to me was, hey, you know, have you considered like family history? And I was like, oh, wait a minute here. Maybe there is some history, because anxiety and depression are like two sides of the same coin.
Mm.
And I have some, you know, some family members that have dealt with depression.
Yeah.
And I'm not depressed. I've never been depressed, but I had a lot of anxiety. And it seemed to be centered around the sleeping thing, but that was just the event that caused it to sort of emerge.
Right. You know what's funny, or not funny, but me and sleep have a dubious relationship as well. Yeah, I go in spurts. Right now I'm in a rough kind of patch where I might get like three hours of good sleep, you know, a night. Right. But at the most average is about 5.5. If I get 5.5, man, that was a good night. It's one of those kinds of things. And then it, you know, sometimes it gets better. But you know what's interesting is there was an initial trigger that I can trace my sleeping all the way back to someone you know. So we were dating kind of. I mean, I probably shouldn't say all this, but it's cool. I've seen her. We're cool. But then I realized I didn't want to see her anymore. I didn't want to be, you know, her man, so to speak. So I just went over her place and I told her. And homegirl lost it. She lost it. I said, oh. I mean, because we hadn't really gotten deep or anything. It was just, you know, and she lost it, man. And I left that night, went back to my dorm, and I tried to go to sleep, and I could not sleep all night. Literally, just couldn't sleep at all, right? Mm-hmm. I remember calling my mother in the morning and saying, Mom, I couldn't sleep all night. I don't know what happened. And she's like, what happened? I said, no, nothing. I just couldn't sleep. I didn't want to tell her, you know. And then about an hour into the conversation, I said, actually, yeah, it was a girl. This girl, you know, something happened. Anyway, but from that night on, or from that point on, sleep has always been up and down. Always. Like, it's always been an issue since that.
She's not into witchcraft or anything, is she?
She might have put some voodoo on me or something.
So, okay.
So there's romance right there. There's, you know.
Right. Hey, sometimes that's the only option is you realize that you can't do it. I'm gonna tell you, in my case, it took me a long time before I was able to actually walk away from a relationship,
Mm.
because I always saw it as, I don't know. I saw it like it was like I don't want to quit on anything, right?
Right.
So my parents are still together. They didn't quit. So, and unfortunately, you can't apply that same level of commitment and intensity to everybody, because they're not the right people for it.
Right person.
They're not the right person for it. I mean, yeah. I mean, in increasingly, and I feel really bad for, my students, college students, because stock is plummeting. I'm sorry, it is. It is plummeting. It is going straight down, man.
Hey,
It is hard to find somebody now. Praise the Lord.
My mom always says they don't make them like they, or no, my dad always says they don't make them like they used to.
That's straight truth.
Well, it's a different day. Let's just say that without getting too deep into it. It's a different day, and I think that as a result, now I'm gonna leave it at that. I don't want to, bring too much heat on me, but things are different. I'll just say that things are definitely different than they used to be, which has caused some, some issues and some challenges as to how men and women relate and work together, and how relationships kind of go. Yeah.
It is a challenging kind of change, but hopefully things will fix themselves. They'll kind of, everything will start to get back in balance in some kind of way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's natural. That's evolution, and I think it's healthy that we're evolving. Things change naturally, but I think we have to relearn how to make everything kind of copacetic and work, and relearn how to get along. Honestly,
how to talk to each other. Yeah, how to have a conversation. How to not assume or think what the other person's motivations are, or that they're inherently something wrong with them or something, and just be willing to have open and honest conversations,
right?
And try to maybe change some of our expectations.
Yeah, there you go.
So we kind of started talking about video editing, and obviously that's with a particular intent, and that is hustling the internet. You're trying to use the internet as a way to market, as a way to promote, using social media, trying to use it in a positive way, as opposed to the sort of soul-sucking waste land that it could be, trying to actually pump positive stuff out there that can actually contribute to the momentum in your career and stuff.
Right.
So do you have a particular strategy when you're thinking about using social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube in particular, you have a particular strategy?
My strategy, or my goal, I should say, I think, is to educate first. Right. I think that's my biggest offering in the last 10 years is education. Before that, people knew me only as a performer, but now most people, most of the younger generations, they know me as an educator first, which I have at first, when that change started happening, I did resist it. And it was a little, I don't know, I didn't love it, but then I embraced it and realized I can have a very big impact on a lot of people and how they learn this music, which is hard. That was the impetus to starting my YouTube channel, is just trying to put good information out that's clear, easy to understand, takes away some of the intimidation factor of jazz, you know. So that's my first goal, is just educate, bring people in to the music, make them feel welcomed, and help them, basically. Just help. I think I was thinking about the other day. I don't necessarily love teaching. I teach, and I'm a good teacher, but I think more than that, I love helping people. Right?
That's interesting.
I think good teachers more than just the idea of teaching. They like to help people. They like to help students become better at whatever they're trying to get. So, and that's me. That's me all day. When I put out these videos, I'm just trying to help as many people as I can. And in turn, though, I'm also trying to share my art and I'm trying to share my art and share what I do, what I can do with music, and how some of the concepts that I talk about, how they affect my playing, and vice versa, the things that I play, how they affects my teaching. So essentially, I'm trying to, make it one, teaching teaching and playing. It's slowly doing this so that my teaching is actually art,
Right. Yeah. And your videos definitely do that. They definitely are clear. They definitely demystify.
Yeah.
So I think they're very, very effective.
Thank you.
In doing that. It's interesting. There's some different words that we use associated with teaching. Let's see, what is it? One instruct. The word instruct comes from a word that means to force, whereas the word teach comes from a word that means to edify. And I think of it like teaching is the job.
Yeah. Right.
And your motivation to teach may be very different from someone else's motivation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of available, there's a lot of the possibilities there, right? If your heart in your heart of hearts, if you just want to serve people, you can serve people by teaching, right? The actual process of teaching might not be necessarily something that you're in love with, but the end goal is something that's very satisfying because it's serving that inner need that you have to serve others.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
And what's interesting is now that you're saying that explains several things about who I think you are as a musician. It gives me a different perspective on it. Because, you're a drummer, you're a accompaniment, I guess it would be considered accompaniment, right? You're supporting, someone else that's playing.
Yeah.
Right. And there's like a service kind of, component or aspect to that. You're laying down the foundation for someone else to shine in.
Sometimes that service is felt stronger than other times. if you know what I mean.
No, you said sometimes the service is more labor intensive.
That's right.
So,
yes, sir.
Yeah. I know a little bit of what you're talking about now here. So So how important, so, we're talking about social media, and, we kind of got into this by talking about video editing, and maybe taking, taking these videos and trying to educate, trying to teach a particular thing as being a primary reason for doing that. But obviously it helps to market your brand. You're establishing a particular brand, this sort of, clarity, demystifying, stuff, kind of, taking the language of jazz and presenting it, in a way that is more palatable. So, social media started out as a way to network.
Yeah.
Right. So I remember when Facebook came out, and of course, Facebook is not the first thing. Obviously, MySpace was out before that, and there were some other attempts at it.
Right.
But Facebook obviously was the most effective.
Yes.
Platform. And let's see here. This must have been 2005, 2006, somewhere in there, I think, is when I actually started my Facebook account.
I wonder if if we can look that up. Exactly.
Oh, when it started?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious now.
Let's see here. February 2004.
2004. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So, I met a young lady at the gym I was working out at around that time, 2006, 2000, whatever that was. And she was like, "Hey, you got to get on Facebook." I was like, okay. So I checked it out, and I was like, "Oh, this is all right. Okay, let me get on this." But the networking thing was very interesting, because the way they have it set up is, you have stuff that you can show just to the general public. You have stuff that can be just totally private.
Right.
You can set stuff up so that only certain people can see it, or like only friends of friends can see it, or only your, direct circle of friends. Right. So it's got a lot of control that way, which sort of mirrors sort of the way that information tends to travel anyway. Right.
Right. We're controlling who hears about it, or who receives it.
Right. Yeah. Right. So it's like if I tell you about something, and then right, and you tell somebody else about it, and then in that exchange they told a few more people about it. Right. So this is, you talk about networking. That's how that works. How important in your career has networking been? No, I mean, now this is there's an obvious answer, which is nothing happens without networking. But then there's probably specific examples of things that occurred because of, like, somebody gave a word of mouth or something.
Are you talking about virtually, or?
Well, I'm just saying networking in general, but then we could go into virtually too.
I mean, yeah, I would definitely say I've gotten a lot of recommendations from people just on account of them, or actually I should say I've gotten called for gigs on account of them hearing about me through somebody else.
Right.
So in that way, it was huge. I mean, when I first moved to New York, when you move to a new city, you're trying to establish yourself. You have to network like crazy. And that's what I was doing, even though I didn't know that's what I was doing. But by going out every night and staying out till, the sun was coming up, I was meeting musicians. I was playing with different people, and I was networking. So I think that part of my, my career starting out in New York was based on the fact that I was networking so much. And that doesn't stop. Really, that doesn't stop. For me, the biggest, I think that's what's amazing about the internet, man. As much of a pain in the ass it is dealing with it, it's just amazing. So like when I started my YouTube channel, I don't know if I told you this, but I started it because I just wanted to, I was teaching a student and I thought, well, this is a common question I get from a lot of students. So I'm just going to videotape this and I'll throw it up on the internet, that kind of thing, up on YouTube. It was a super crude video, but, and then I got a lot of feedback from it. It was that one, and then my next one was kind of a bigger one, and I got a lot of feedback from that. And it made me realize, wow, there's a niche for this. There's a need for this. And the fact that it just kind of, that's what I love about it. It just kind of has a life. It takes on a life of its own. Once you put it out there, it works, and it finds places that you would never think about. And it helps people that you would never be able to help normally in your day to day. So for me, like since kind of starting teaching and teaching at the university level, that's more than networking. That's really what's kind of taken hold and help kind of keep my name out there, albeit as an educator, that's fine. It's still staying out there as a result of the internet kind of spreading, or I'm sure there's a better word for it, but it's truly a web. And
yeah, it's like virtual networking. I mean, it's
information is being passed through this web that
social marketing. There's different ways to talk about that, but
that's fascinating.
When I started, because you don't. Okay, so there's a couple things that are implied with this, right? And I think you're more outgoing than I am. At least I always saw you as having better, in general, better skills, small talking. Like I think it's less cumbersome or something for you to start certain kinds of conversations. Like you can get in where you perceive a window is, and I think that's really served you well because in a situation where you're meeting somebody that you don't know the person, you need to be able to get in and make a good impression quickly,
right?
And then go from there. But I think, so if, for instance, you were turning cats off, then obviously that would be negative networking. I mean, you wouldn't get any benefit from the network. It would just spread poison,
right?
And so unfortunately, there are a lot of musicians and artists that they have such poor communication skills that it probably is a negative thing for them to try to get out and mix it up with folks, because they're going to, it's not going to be like positive stuff.
Ruin their name.
Yeah.
You're right. I didn't think about that, but it's true. I think my parents always said when I was a kid, the neighbors loved me. I would be up and down the street taking things to Miss Rixey and taking this to Miss Arlinsky and this to Miss Metcalf and taking coupons down the street, and because I loved people. I've always loved people, and I've been good with people. Although I don't love always having to be good with people, and I don't love that aspect all the time. Sometimes I don't want to deal with people, but I'm good at it. I'm pretty good at it, I guess.
You're definitely good at it. You're definitely good at it. I think you have something that that's just something that you have. I think you've definitely improved at it.
Right.
But that's just something that you just,
that's what I mean.
You have.
Yeah. From a little kid, I've had that thing, whatever that is.
for me, I've worked on it a lot. That our initial encounter at Western, where
Do you remember that?
I do remember it. I do remember it. Yeah, I do remember it. I was, so I'm playing, I'm practicing whatever, and you said something, so then I said hello, and then I went right back to whatever, and that was that's me without any interest, well, without the benefit of retrospective, without the benefit of like, I wonder how that came across, like someone would really have to give me the benefit of the doubt for that to be like, like a funny story, um and so I've thought about the way that I'm perceived. You do the thing where I'm going to take 50% responsibility for how I'm perceived. I'm not going to take 100% because that's not reasonable, and no one can take 100%. You can't do that.
Right.
But I'm going to take 50%, and if I do a good job of my 50%, then more often than not, people should end up with a positive, having a positive experience.
Right.
And then you just go from there.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to think about it. And you, I mean, you've come a long way, Sean. I mean, man, even just with within those 4 years, you really became a lot more. You went from somebody who was more isolated, and I think you were just used to being isolated and just practicing all day, and you went from that to somebody that everybody loved. I mean, everybody loved hanging out with you, and you cracking jokes with everybody. By the time when you left, you got along with everybody, and you made everybody feel good.
Yeah, that's what I wanted you guys to think. No, I was just like, really, I'm still the same old rascal.
Right.
You guys just like me now. No. No, but I'm an introvert, and
right. By nature.
I'm just an introvert, and I'm always going to be an introvert, and that's okay. I just have to figure out ways to get in stuff to situations. It's not always the most natural thing for me to do.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely been something that I've worked on.
Yeah.
And for that very reason, because if our business is so based on networking and word of mouth, and social media, and people having an initial positive experience with you, then you better get that together, because it doesn't matter how great you play, doesn't matter how many instruments you play, doesn't matter how good a teacher you are. If you turn everybody off,
yeah, it's true.
But I feel like a lot of that came from my relationship with you, because I saw the way that people responded to you, and I wanted them to respond to me in the same way.
Saw me cheesing it up, like, oh, okay. That's how you do it. Okay, let me smile and grin and now, but my dad, that's where it comes from. My dad he'll light up a room just by walking in there, and he'll talk to everybody and have everybody laughing. And I'm not that, he's much further and deeper with that, but I definitely have some of that.
So now you mentioned this thing about moving to New York, and in our last interview, I told you that I remember when you moved to New York, and I called you at some point. I called you, and we started having a conversation, and you had some doubts. Mm-hmm. You had some doubts at that time about moving, and I think a positive thing about sharing when you have doubts is that it helps to normalize other people that have doubts, so they don't feel like total like
Yeah.
buffoons or something, or like, what's wrong with me? Why is it that, am I the only one that's having these doubts?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, when I first moved, you go from being somewhat of was it a big fish in a small pond to a
Mm.
little, what do you call them? Minnow
Mm.
tadpole in an ocean. That's what you feel like.
Yeah.
And so I can remember it vividly. That first couple months, dude, I just felt completely inadequate and unnecessary. I didn't need to be there because there were so many great, like, killing drummers that I couldn't play half of the stuff they were playing. And also I was working actually. I started working fairly quickly, but as far as my skills, I was well behind everybody else. And so, yeah, I really thought about moving back to Michigan within the first couple months, especially. And I think that I remember something that Billy Hart told me. He said, when you move to New York, you're going to gain confidence. And I thought, that doesn't even make sense. With all these guys, all these great musicians there, you're not going to gain confidence. And sure enough, within a year of being there, I started getting confident. I started gaining confidence because you start to realize that you have a unique gift that nobody else has, right? You have a unique sound, you have a unique approach, everything. That, yeah, no matter how great other drummers are, they don't sound like you. And so it made me realize, well, I just need to get my technique. I need to get everything a little bit up to snuff to where everybody else is, but still try to retain my personality in everything I'm doing. And that's when I started and then I started getting some gigs. That's also what helped. I started honing my sound on gigs. And then, like within a couple years, I felt like, okay, I can do this, Yeah, it made a difference when you have gigs where they're not judging you. You just go ahead and play. That's when
it's interesting. It's interesting because the networking obviously was sort of hand in hand with you, as you said, trying to gain some more facility.
Yeah.
And then gaining confidence, and the networking got you some gigs, right? So then you could start playing and playing more often. And there's this it's sort of I don't know that trope is not the right term, but it's a common saying. If you pray for patience, then God will send you a scenario that requires you to develop patience. and I know you and I probably both have some students that have helped us to develop patience.
Tested that patience.
And so it's interesting going to New York to develop confidence. You have to develop confidence or you can't stay there.
You can't survive. That's the difference for me. It's not just New York, but in any of the hubs of the music, that's the difference between, musicians there and musicians who are good in other places. But there's a certain urgency, there's a certain confidence, there's a certain swag that musicians in those hubs have, especially in New York, that you can't really put your finger on, like, dang, what is. It's just that extra little whatever it takes to survive in those cities, and and to meet the standard there.
Well, and it's interesting because all of the music, the music that I really dig is is East Coast, and I really consider like Detroit as kind of still the same, that same vibe. But all of the stuff that I really dig is like East Coast stuff. And although I think there's a lot of great stuff that's come out of the West Coast, it doesn't usually have this sort of, you know, get out of my way, I'm walking here.
That's right.
You know, it doesn't have that. It doesn't have that.
Right.
You know,
the only thing missing from that is asshole.
That's right. That's right. Can't you see me? I'm right here. Yeah.
It's true. It's urgency. That's what Billy Hart used to say. Urgency. You know, there's got to be an urgency in the music. Like, yeah, because people.
There's Charlie Parker. You know, who's is an East Coast. You know, he personifies that. You know, like Sonny Rollins. You know, like they have that. You know that they have that that extra it's like a bum jumps in your face, you got one tooth and he's yelling right in your face. There's a right it's just there's some extra some extra stuff on that. And Charlie Parker does this thing, tikata, right? So, right. Tikata, tikata, so he's it's funny when I hear some of my students try to play that initially, they don't understand the technique. And so they'll try to straight tongue it, ta. And then the ones that figure it out that, oh, okay, he's triple tonguing, tikata. Okay, I can see that. But then it's like, it's too clean and it's too refined and it's too sweet. And so I always, I use the example of, a bum with one tooth jumping in their face. It's more like somebody cussing you out than it is like, right. Than it is like, let me talk very eloquently about this language I'm about to speak. It's not that.
I don't have time for that, brother. You gotta hit me hard or don't hit me at all.
That's right.
You're not gonna get nobody's attention with talking like that. That's kind of what it is. Hey, actually, I wanted to ask you when. I don't know if I've ever asked you this. When did you when did you learn your first, bird solo or bird head or whatever?
Okay. So the first bird head, that was
Confirmation. I
was pretty young. I don't remember what the tune was now. I couldn't tell you which. It could have been Scrapple. It might have been Scrapple from the Apple. And it was just a head.
Yeah.
And maybe I was 9 or 10 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. So my dad had a particular idea about what we were doing. So he didn't want me to too soon start to just try to sound like other guys. Mm. He didn't want me to do that because he thought that in some ways that I could lose my identity before, so he wanted me to spend time. Now, of course, I was influenced by him, right? And he would give me suggestions and things. So I was influenced by my dad, but he wasn't trying to get me to sound like him, and he also didn't want me to too intensely like try to emulate other players, at least not initially. Uh-huh. But then, of course, that started to happen once I really started digging in and listening. And the first guy that I really, really grabbed onto was Sonny Stitt.
Stitt. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, it was Stitt, and it was like, yeah, Stitt was just, and it's funny because before I wanted to deal with Stitt, my dad was trying to get me to deal with Cannonball, and a guy gave me a Dewey Square cassette, the Charlie Parker's Dewey Square, and I listened to that over and over and over, and I really dug that. So my dad was like, okay, well, you like Charlie Parker, maybe you'll dig Cannonball. And he in his head, he's thinking, you know, some of the recordings, the sound quality is better, and of course all this stuff was killing. Like a lot of the Cannonball stuff he was talking about was the stuff with Miles. I mean, it was all killing stuff, right?
Right.
And so I just, I don't know. Cannonball was great. Coltrane sounded great on that stuff, but I that's not what I wanted to do. I just wasn't really Stitt, man. I heard Stitt and I was like, that's it right there. You know.
I see.
And what's interesting about Sonny Stitt is that virtually all you know, virtuoso caliber technicians with respect to clarity, speaking the language.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's what instrument, trumpet, saxophone, keyboard, bass, doesn't matter what the instrument, guitar, whatever.
Right.
Sonny Stitt. Everybody that I have had this conversation with, they all say, "Oh yeah, Sonny Stitt." It's
you think it's
uncanny.
The clarity that he played with, and the command on the instrument.
Well, it's the clarity, it's the precision, it's the surgical and precise execution of the language.
Right.
I mean, he never plays any BS.
Right.
It's all the right stuff all the time, and his time and clarity is so it's so there that there's no question as to what it is that he's playing.
So this is, I'm putting you on the spot, but when's the last time you listened to him? Like, have you listened to him recently?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see here.
Like, is there somebody, you know, when you have time, I know you have not as much time these days, but when you have time to listen, is there something that you always come back to? Like a player or an album or you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Stitt that I come back to. Coltrane, I love the Prestige box set. Coltrane, I love probably my favorite period of Train is the Atlantic period. And
really?
I have that heavyweight champion, and I've worn that Joker out.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love those are go-to moves. I love Klaus Ogerman, Brecker and Klaus Ogerman.
Yeah.
Both of those projects are off the charts, killing for all kinds of reasons.
By the way, I know you know this album, Brecker, with the Gil Goldstein arrangements. I can't remember the name of the album. Hold on, I just got it, because I mean, it's like the Klaus Ogerman, but it's a lot more hitting. It's what did I say? Michael Brecker. Yeah, it's this. Oh yeah, Wide Angles.
Oh yeah.
I know you. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I'm all over that, man.
Wow.
All the Brecker stuff, man, is ultra bad. And it's not just because of Brecker.
Right.
It's because his band is always like the baddest joint ever.
The compositions.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
It's ultra bad. There's a solo saxophone. I always forget the what is it? Germany. It was like for some outside festival in Germany or something. Brecker does a solo saxophone concert.
Oh.
And I can't speak intelligently about it right now, but that is pure gold.
Ooh.
It's super bad. He plays a couple of his originals on that,
Right.
and it's killing, man.
So that's
super killing.
So clearly Brecker trained Stitt. Right.
Yeah, but Stitt and Train are the two biggest influences.
Yeah.
You know, I love Chris Potter, and I mean, there's a lot of Donnie McCaslin. There's a lot of great players.
Yeah.
These days.
On every instrument.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It's a great time to live.
Yeah, it is, man. I mean, I think the level of technical ability on instruments is higher than ever. I mean, everybody can play their instruments at a very high level.
Yeah, little kids can play their instruments.
Yeah,
you know,
kids playing more stuff than I'll ever dream about. You know, like, okay, all right, little fella. You know, so they look at me like I remember being in Tel Aviv, Israel, of all places, and I was there playing with Joel Fromm. You know, Joel?
okay.
Yeah, and we're giving a clinic, and we so in the clinic we play one tune up front, just to let the students know this is our high school, let them know how we play, and blah blah. So we play, we do our little thing, and then we ask them, "Do you have any questions?" Yeah. Silence. Okay. Is there anybody who wants to play? Is there? The teacher says, "Oh, there's a group who wants to play," and they get up. These kids were playing. They were playing. I think they were playing like 9-4 or something like that. Like, that's why you ain't have no questions. Play it all. I mean, the level though now is from an early age. That's just what they do. It's like, if you want to play the music, then you got to play the instrument good. That wasn't always the case. Feeling was always there. It was perhaps stronger back in the day, or at least more consistent. But now everybody can play their instrument.
So we've been talking about being an educator, and jazz and the academy are sort of strange bedfellows. Because the conservatory model is not particularly conducive to to jazz.
Right.
And it's challenging from a sort of cultural perspective, and a particular approach to teaching jazz that seems to be more of a traditional approach, versus this sort of academic jazz. So it's challenging in that way. It's been challenging in the sort of getting the academy to accept jazz, and not sort of the terms that we still hear that are, even if a person doesn't necessarily mean what the sort of undertones of a term are, those terms still seem to be around. Stuff like calling classical music legit.
Right.
Calling jazz musicians jazzers.
Right.
There's a number of these sort of things. A jazz composition is a tune, whereas a classical composition is a work,
right,
or a piece,
right.
And there's a lot of this kind of stuff that's sort of thrown into the same bucket. And initially my thought was always, there's like this racial thing, right? It's like, people don't want to accept the music because of who it comes from. And I think that there's some truth to that, and maybe more truth to that particular aspect of it years ago, and maybe there's some remnants of that. But it seems to me actually that the battle more often now is a battle between art music and commercial music. And since jazz is both, has been influential to every form of commercial music,
Yeah.
And also has the capability of standing on its own 2 feet without the need of government subsidy. I actually think that there is something there that is actually the sore spot. And I think it sort of animates some of these other issues. And yeah, those other things that I said, I think are true. I think there is some racial bias associated with, and maybe some systemic bias. But I think that the modern version of those, the modern version of this is really about art music versus commercial music. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that we have to get out of the mindset. We have to somehow get out of that mindset that, yeah, jazz is not as legitimate as European classical music. That's the first thing. And I think that, it's like the upper men. That's where it comes from, just the mentality, and being able to talk about jazz in the way that is respected, in a way that shows reverence for its purpose in American history, and the evolution of this country, the evolution of the people, how it reflects the evolution of our times. That's not something that really goes well with institution, and academia. And I think it's our job to try to, you and I are in positions where we have very big influences on students, obviously, but also people we work with. And in my time being here, that's something that I'm trying to embrace more. I'm trying to speak up more, because we represent the music, in the truest sense, honestly. And if we're not speaking up, then we're not really taking full responsibility. We're not doing our part to advance the way this music is kind of looked at, and jazz musicians are looked at. So that's what I've been really trying to do this year. Just speak up more, share my opinions, share my views, and point and call things out when I notice bias. So and I think that if we're doing that, Sean, especially as Black men playing this music, if we're doing that, people they're paying attention to what we're saying. They are absolutely paying attention. And I make sure that I talk to my students about it too, so that they understand the place in history that this music has, and the importance of this music, and the importance of the culture behind the music. You can't learn the music without learning the culture.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the point is that if we're doing that, then I think that's all we can really do. And it's easy to get caught up in, well, they're doing this, and they're more than that. What are we doing? What are we doing? And I think that, by us just having these conversations and, kind of just talking I know you do, talking to those around us and having these kinds of conversations, not just having them, but having them with the goal of making changes, which I'm so proud, man. This program has changed within the last 4 years I've been here so much. A lot of great things about the school, a lot of great things, but a lot of things needed to change. And we're pushing. I'm pushing. A lot of my colleagues were pushing for those changes. That's what we have to do.
So last time, you said that, I asked you, so is there something that you're working on? And one of the things that you said that you were working on was something that you said was going to be called, let's see here. What is it? Music in the Key of Q?
Songs in the Key of Q?
Songs in the Key of Q, Volume 2?
Volume 2.
So it seems what's happened is, because I'm pretty sure you didn't have another project out before this, is that you changed your mind on what you wanted the project to be called. So recently you released Q Vision.
That's right.
And can you talk a little bit about that? I've got a nice picture back here.
Picture back there. So yeah. I initially, for me, I'm like all about the music, and I'm not super creative when it comes to things outside of music, honestly. So I thought, man, songs in the key. I like that title. Songs in the Key of Q2. It's perfect. It's done. Because I don't want to put. I didn't feel like putting more energy on that than I needed to. Done. And then I guess I talked to people about it, and I was convinced. I talked to my parents about it too. I was convinced that maybe this CD needs its own title. So, dang, now I got to come up with another title. And, you don't even understand. It's an ordeal. It's an ordeal. I don't know. Maybe it's like that for everybody, but it just took me forever. And then somehow you just stumbled upon this title, and it stuck. And it kind of fit the year too. Just having vision, the kind of vision that I feel as a drummer is required. Just kind of having that broad vision of the band, of the music, of the audience. It's talking about that. It's talking about vision of just interpersonal skills, and just having vision to understand how to talk to different people, like we kind of talked about. Yep. I guess you could also say awareness. It's same thing.
Yep.
And then having vision beyond your immediate circle. So especially this year, we have to have vision and awareness of what's going on in the world, and how we fit into that, and how we are going to adapt, and
have seeing beyond the pandemic.
That's we have. Yeah, if you're gonna have any hope and if you're gonna try to stay positive, then you have to have some vision beyond what's happening.
It's interesting because we kind of started getting down this path, starting to talk about some video production stuff, and some of the skills that you have put you in a position where you can have this Q vision, right? Where you can use. So hey, you don't have a lot of gigs going on right now. Okay, I'll just do more videos. I don't have a lot of this happening right now. I'm going to use this other networking capability that I have. I'm going to use social media. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to, focus more on the teaching stuff. I'm going to, create more clarity and it's one of the reasons why I think that if you do it right, if you think about it right, if you have a diverse enough set of skills, you can thrive in any circumstance in music. I mean, because there's a billion things that you can do in music.
It is, yeah.
That's a low number. That's a conservative estimate. There's a billion things that you can do in music, right? There's all of this stuff. And when I look around, the folks that are doing the best are the ones that have some of these other skills.
You gotta adapt. You have to adapt, man. And I'm thinking about all the students now. Some of them just graduated. Can you imagine? You graduate and you ain't got no gigs. You can't play any gigs. And I think I hate to say this, Sean, but I don't know. It's kind of a harbinger to things that are coming. At least a percentage of what's a small sample of what could come in the future. Yeah. Or I should say, even if it's not this extreme, it's going to be some form of this. And when I say that, it just pains me, man, when I see students graduating with these jazz degrees, and I mean, I think it's great if they want to play jazz, great, but there's no gigs. Not like when, I mean, you just looking at New York, man, places are shutting down. People are leaving New York.
Yeah, look at all the jazz clubs that have closed.
I hate to see that, man. Seeing Jazz Standard close, that was the first real jazz club I went to. I found it by myself, and I went there, man, and I heard who was playing. I think Carl Allen was playing with Vincent Herring and Mulgrew Miller. Like cats were playing.
Right.
Man, to see a place like that close is not a good sign, And so that means, hey, we got to have some extra skills to bring to the table when we can't make a living solely reliant on performing, because I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. 5-10 years from now, if you're a musician, yeah, you're teaching, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing that. The majority of musicians, that just has to be expected, which I don't think that many students realize that's going to be the reality,
Yeah. I'm a realist, and now my wife might tell you that I'm a pessimist, but I'm actually a realist. Mm-hmm. I am trying to, as much as I can, I want to speak about and have a precision and clarity about the way that I talk about actual reality, the current reality, what is actually happening, right? I want to be able to talk with precision about what's actually happening. Okay. And so in order to do that, you have to be willing to admit certain things that maybe are negative, but you also can admit things that are positive, right? Right. In this situation, what I see as positive is, if people will allow it to, you can sort of reinvent yourself. You can acquire new skills and stay working in the industry that you love, but just sort of pivot a little bit to find wherever that window is for you. Mm-hmm. And now what do I see on the negative side of that? Yeah, I don't know that things are ever going to be the way that they were. Yeah. So we can try to act like, we can be optimistic about it. Oh yeah, everything's going to come back. No, I'm sorry. I don't think that's wise. I think you have to.
Don't assume that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we can be, delightfully pleased. Yeah. We can be delightfully surprised if it comes back to, to what, but you got to prepare for, you got to prepare for the worst. I don't want to, that sounds bad, but you got to prepare for the worst. And that's really what stuff is about. The reason that you were able to be successful taking the risk that you did moving to New York it wasn't because you you know you never practiced, you were really you know ambiguous in things about what it was that you wanted to do, and you were just like, hey, let me just try this, I could go over here and I can move over this direction, or I can move that here, let me roll some dice, let's see. That's not how that worked, right? You had a real specific thing that you wanted to do, and you were like, okay, I'm gonna go do this. And you had some doubts, but you stuck it out, right? So to me, that sounds like there's risk involved with everything, but that's not like a ridiculous risk. That's not like a hey, let me jump off the side of this, the cliff, off the side of this mountain, and
See what happens.
yeah, right. That it's not that kind of thing. So, what a bad risk would be is exactly that. What a good risk is to actually set yourself up for success by perceiving what some of the pitfalls could be and trying to hedge against them as much as you can.
Yeah.
And more of us have to do that. We just have to do that. You can't just, and honestly, this has been on a decline even before the pandemic.
Absolutely.
It has been on a steady decline, but we gotta get our students to acknowledge, to see what actually is there. I don't want to pump them full of fear or anything.
No,
but you got to know what's happening.
You got to know what you're getting into, and if you want to do it, you're great, and I'll support that. And I mean, it just takes passion. It takes a passion that, in spite of circumstances and in spite of challenges, it doesn't matter. It doesn't keep you from following that passion. If you have that, then by all means, you work hard and you got a talent for it, and you'll be fine, because it'll lead you down the path, and you'll find different things. But if you kind of like, well, that sounds cool. No, this ain't for you.
Yeah, just do something else.
Go ahead and just save yourself some headaches and time, stress, and just stop. Just because it ain't like that. It's not easy, and especially now.
Yeah, I interviewed Byron Stripling, and he said something like, "I'm totally going to ruin this." And he got this from someone else. I think he got it from Clark Terry, actually. He said, if you can think of anything else that you want to do other than music, do that.
I'm saying, man,
that's truth, man. That is straight truth, man.
At the very least, you can do something else. Do that.
Right.
I'm saying, because for me, I didn't have a choice. This is all I really knew how to do. That's what I did. I didn't have anything else I could really do. But if you can't,
I really didn't. I really didn't have a choice. I don't remember choosing.
Right.
That's
exactly.
I don't remember choosing. It's just like, hey, well, I'm already way out in the middle of the lake now, so I guess
we'll keep going.
That's right.
Continue down this path. But man.
All right, man. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna link in the description where people can get your recording.
Okay. Yeah, you can go to my website, Quincy Davis Jazz.
Yeah.
Get there.
Yeah, I'll link you in the description. This is the last interview I'm doing for 2020.
Wow.
It is, and I'm taking a break until January 4th for my next interview.
What are you gonna do with your extra time?
Oh, right. Well, I do have some other stuff.
I'm sure you do.
So, yeah. But you're my dude, man. I'm glad to be ending this year with you, and especially since you were one of the first folks that I interviewed, and it just has a nice feel to it. And
man, this was great. I'm glad I could. I'm honored that you asked me to do it twice, actually. And
yeah, man, and we have to have you back again. Maybe after like this pandemic is like has been over for like a year or something.
Yeah,
have you come back.
Completely different conversation then. All
right.
That we said back, that was all boy.
Yeah, that's right. No. Look. It'll be like a an episode, like an episode of MTV's Cribs. You got like you're like, hey, this bald eagle, this chinchilla and bald eagle. Yeah, you see this chandelier right here,
swinging all over the place.
That's right.
Go.
All right, man.
Gold plated drums.
Yeah, that's right. You have like some fluffers in the room, and they walk over and give you some grapes every once in a while during the interview.
I just go. What, man? Who knows though? I hope that when we do this next, we're in a better place as a world, as a universe, as a people, as everything on many different levels. I hope that we're in a better place. So,
yes. All right, man. Well, God bless you, and you be safe, and a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all of that good stuff.
The same to you, man, and say hi to your family for me.
I definitely will.
Okay. All right, Sean.
All right, man. Bye.